In the railway dining car, 3 men in the snowy shirt sleeves and dress slacks of Thai businessmen immediately blow my intention to pass for Malay. First, they send the waiter to my table to ask if I speak English. Then they insist on buying me dinner. They look to be in their mid-20s, which means 30-something, and are on a slow, steady path to drunkenness. Their questions, phrased in excellent English, are the usual. Where do you come from? How do you like Thailand? Can you eat Thai food? Where is your protective mail? I reply in English with a little Thai dropped in, pretending to speak far less than I do. Plan B, if unable to pass as Malay, make sure your opponent underestimates you. They crow with delight, and when I cover my rice with tiny heaps of chilies, there's much giggling and nudging. I begin to doubt the likelihood of them being hustlers. Still, I shake my head when they ask if I drink beer. They order another round and tick off a list of beautiful islands, all soon to be immortalized in big budget movies, blonde starlets spilling onto the beaches like oil slicks, followed by a tide of tie-dyed college kids in tivas. I explain that I'm not on vacation, I'm on a pilgrimage in search of famous nuns. The youngest, best-dressed businessman studies my list of temples, his eyes tiny slits of slate in a lobster-red face. I feel drunk just looking at him. Wait a minute, he says, jabbing a manicured finger at the very next stop on my list. You can't go there. Petbury is owned by bandits. The train jolts around a corner, throwing my heart against my rib cage. I'm scheduled to disembark in Petbury tonight. I shrug, feigning indifference. I say, invoking Thailand's mantra. Never mind, it's okay, no problem. No, he insists, eyes sharpening with increasing, alarming sobriety. The train gets in at 3 in the morning. They know who arrives, where they stay. He blurts a flurry of southern dialect to his friends. I assume a blank expression, heart still racing. What should she do? One asks. Might be blurry. It's not good at all. She shouldn't go alone, the first explains. They kidnap visitors and plantation workers to extort money. Why doesn't she get off at your stop? A third suggests. Yes, my would-be savior agrees, turning his palms face upward, a gesture I choose to interpret as sincere. My town is larger and more secure. I can make sure she gets to a guest house. In the morning, I can come with my Mercedes to drive her to the nun center. Di Lao, they agree. Good enough. It is indeed a good plan, and I decide to accept. I know that to ask a Thai for help, even directions, is to embark on an extended relationship in which his responsibility will not end until I have reached my destination or he has died. The first businessman proposes his solution, speaking careful English. You should not get off at Petbury, which is the next stop. You should get off at Ratbury, the following stop, where I live. He explains why. I look skeptical for a few minutes before making a show of allowing myself to be convinced. The bill then arrives, sparking an unsteady race to unzip Italian wallets, many shouted claims and counterclaims of being the eldest, much shouting, much tossing of red and tan bills onto the table, much swatting away of younger men's bills, entreaties to the Buddha ensue. I thank them, placing my hands together and bringing them to my forehead. This delights them, though their drunken attempts to return the gesture are more Three Stooge-like than Thai. I head back to second class while they exit out the front to first class, fresh bottles clinking in their hands. See you in a few hours, the first businessman pronounces, on the platform. Back at my seat, I find that a tiny mother with 3 children has joined me. Keeping my head respectfully below hers, I duck into my seat. Once seated diagonally across, I nod and smile. The broad planes of her face twitch, processing the information that she has inadvertently installed her family next to something strange. Seconds later, they smooth into determined pleasantness. The 2 younger children freeze in midair, saucer-eyed and speechless. The eldest, a boy of about 10, has ended up next to me. Spine rigid as a dancer, he perches at the absolute edge of his seat, 1 more inch forward and he would be levitating. He makes a fluttering gesture with his hand, an unspoken plea, and his mother snaps a single syllable in southern dialect, its meaning unmistakable. Stay! Keeping his head perfectly still, the boy monitors me out of the corner of his eyes. pupils rotating in their sockets as if he were performing Khon, a mass dance based on the Ramayana. He is Hanuman, the monkey general, terrifying the demon with his jerky movements and wildly spinning eyeballs. Grinning, I fall into the half-waking rhythm of train travel. My limbs loosen and jolt. Outside, an epic battle rages, blue-faced demons pitted against Lord Rama and the monkey soldiers. Little Hanuman pokers straight at my side. When the conductor slams through the car calling Petri, I consider jumping up and dashing for the exit. Why change my plan? What if the businessman already forgot our agreement? What if he was just talking and there are no armed robbers? I press my nose to the cold glass. What does a bandit-owned town look like? I imagine clusters of men with machine guns, a banner strung across the platform, 6-inch letters spelling out, "Welcome to bandit territory." I decide to disembark, stick to the plan, rely on myself. I reach for the knapsack between my legs. Just then Hanuman nods off, his head dropping face first into the crook of my elbow. He is warm as a furnace, his soft cheeks like sun-ripened peaches against my skin. Startled, I jerk upright. The stubble of his shaven head scrapes along the flesh of my inner arm. He squirms into a fetal position, his small round head falling into my lap, like a gift. Across the aisle, his family dozes, piled atop one another, the younger children's mouths half open like tiny buds. I rest my hand lightly on the shoulder of the sleeping boy. The train hurtles through bandit territory. An hour later, we reach Rapuri. Reluctantly, I lift the boy from my lap. His eyes flutter for a split second, momentarily wild, then close, the lids settling into smiling gold crescents. I drape him over both seats, then grab my knapsack and sprint to the end of the car. The conductor watches as I disembark and scour the length of the train in both directions. "Kun un?" he asks. "Someone else?" I nod. A minute later, he jerks his chin at me. "Malay?" I nod. What the hell? We wait some more. The station is locked tight. No banner. Good. Except for a son-in-law driver asleep at the back of his trishaw, the platform is empty. Finally, the conductor shrugs. "Sure this is the right stop?" Did I get them mixed up? I ask, "Did a man get off at the last stop?" He shakes his head, the gold braid on his cap glinting in the light from the doorway. "No one gets off these stops at night." This is why he's kept the train running, waiting. I stare open-mouthed, just now beginning to comprehend the size of his concern, the size of my stupidity. I know nothing about this town, other than it's an hour closer to Bangkok, so supposedly larger and safer. For all I know, this is the heart of bandit territory, and the businessman gets a commission on all foreign women he lures here. The train begins to snort and strain like an animal in restraint, and the conductor hops up to the metal step. "Bakma," he offers. Get back on. I shake my head. In the temple, they taught us to confront the very things that terrify us. With a great squeal, the train pulls away. "Good luck," he calls. I hoist my knapsack and turn to find the son-in-law driver sitting up, regarding me. "Son-in-law?" he inquires. I nod briskly and scramble into the back. "Take me to the Chinese hotel," I bark. "Look, Lao, I'm late." As he begins to pilot the son-in-law through the abandoned streets in that slow, standing pedal that resembles slow-motion running, I pray that the stereotype about trishaw drivers being drug pushers, pimps, and bandit informants is greatly exaggerated. I also pray that there is a Chinese hotel.
"7:48 a.m. Dressed in my daily uniform of a pastel polo, khakis, and canvas slip-on shoes, I slide into a Toyota hatchback. My Tanzanian colleagues gave me a hard time about overpaying for the car, but I bought it solely for its freakishly powerful air conditioner. The whirring cold air quickly fills the car, stoking the spearmint-scented Christmas tree hanging from the rearview mirror. An artificial freshness masks the fetid tropical miasma of burning garbage, blooming flowers, and rotting fruit on the outside. Through the car window, I wave to the young men who open and close the gates to the compound. Only a few months ago, I would have stopped the car, rolled down the window, and exchanged chipper pleasantries in Swahili. Mambo VP. Now, I force a stiff smile and a half-hearted wave, keeping one hand on the steering wheel. They wave back and start miming karate chops with their hands. I can discern from their moving lips they are saying, "Good morning, Bruce Lee." My jaw clenches. 10:03 a.m. I move slowly as if wading through rooms and space with strings attached to my limbs like a toy marionette. When I stare at my desk, the computer screen appears farther and farther away as I type multiple government-issued passcodes ingrained into muscle memory. I need hot tea. Strong, steaming black tea. While floating toward the cafeteria, I ponder the perfect recipe for managing weekday mornings, the optimal ratio of caffeine to benzodiazepines. I want to feel high, but I also don't want to fall asleep. Last week, the director, Dr. Zara, found me with the right side of my sweaty head resting on the desktop with a long string of drool hanging from my chapped, sunburnt lips. After she shook me awake with her gentle hand, I told her I thought I might be coming down with malaria. She sent me home in an embassy car. I took the following 3 days off to nap, watch 24 episodes of Mad Men on a government-issued laptop, and consume nothing but black cherry yogurt imported from Norway, white wine from South Africa, and Valium manufactured as generic from India. 11:17 a.m. My 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. meetings are canceled. The assistant health minister is in the capital for meetings, and his secretary forgot to reschedule. With no other items on my agenda, I compulsively toggle between my empty Outlook calendar and my personal Gmail account. I furiously type into the chat box in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. I chat with my friend Hugh, who is getting his PhD at Berkeley and procrastinating on his dissertation. He asks when was the last time I'd gotten laid. I type in response, "I don't remember. I think I'm officially re-virginized." Frowny face. His question provides an opportunity to tell him about the party I attended last weekend at the Brazilian cultural attaché's house on Nunwe Beach. The attaché, a sweaty, burly, hairy man in his late 40s, pulled me away from the bonfire to give me a private tour of his glass-walled compound perched on the edge of the Indian Ocean. While holding 2 yapping chihuahuas, he opened the door to one of the house's many bedrooms. "This is my sexy room." The door revealed a lacquer king-size bed covered with purple silk sheets. I spotted an oily stain on the top sheet. A Rorschach-shaped blot of aubergine floating in the middle of a shimmering rectangle of garish fabric. On the nightstand stood an industrial-sized bottle of lube with a pump dispenser. A former, more rational self would have excused myself to the bathroom and avoided where this was going. Instead, after a beer, 2 wine spritzers, half a pot brownie, and a Xanax, or 2, I clutched the door frame, struggling to discern the attaché's words through his thick Portuguese accent. "Man cannot live on chocolate alone. Sometimes he needs a little rice, no?" He sneered with a wink. 11:46 a.m. I leave the office for lunch. Around the corner is a newly paved road leading to a 10-story hotel owned by a South African conglomerate. Ministry workers dressed in ill-fitting charcoal suits and shiny black shoes wander in and out of the sliding doors of the hotel entrance, wiping their brows with gauzy handkerchiefs. The hotel restaurant is full of international office workers. I remember the rule from last year's foreign service orientation. No ID badges outside of the embassy or office. I take off my ID badge hanging from a steel neck chain and stuff it in my pocket. I flash back to the week-long security training in Washington, consisting of a blur of videos featuring mock terrorists following actors posing as American diplomats and subsequently blowing them up in their cars. In between video clips, our facilitator, a bulldog of a man in a cheap navy suit and a silver crew cut, barked, "People all over the world hate you because you are American and you represent freedom. Be careful of who you associate with and don't tell anyone any information that can later be held against you." My thoughts are interrupted by the maitre d', and I request a table outside on the patio. I sit under an umbrella at a table for 4. I notice I'm the only person sitting on the patio. It's over 100 degrees, humid, and the blazing midday sun is reflecting white light onto the surface of the crystal blue swimming pool. Sweat drips down my scalp toward my neck and chest. I light a cigarette. While exhaling, I revel in my solitude, knowing that none of my colleagues will catch me smoking. The waiter brings my order of 2 ginger ales and chicken Alfredo over penny. I swallow an Ativan before my first bite of pasta. There are only 4 left in the tin. As I cut the chicken smothered in white cream sauce, I notice that a small droplet of blood leaks out of the bite-sized cube of meat. It's bright pink. I consider summoning a waiter and sending it back, but then I remember Darlene from procurement. She got E. coli poisoning earlier this year and was medevaced to South Africa and later sent back to Washington for treatment. She's been out of the office for at least 2 months. I stab my fork into the cube of chicken and I pop it in my mouth. I chew fastidiously, wondering if I can taste blood.